This is the original Firefighter Podcast, where we talk about anything you would talk about at the firehouse kitchen table. And sometimes we even talk about fighting fires. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Let's get into the show. And welcome back to the original Firefighter Podcast. We have several segments to get through today. We've got some shocking news coming out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we also want to look at what's happened in the last 20 years since Katrina. But also on today's episode, we have a special guest with us. We have Jared Vermeulen from Jupiter, Florida. And we met Jared, welcome to the show, Jared. We met you at FDIC this year in Indianapolis. We had a great time, hanging out with you. You came on the show on our podcast there. We did a remote podcast, and we had some time with you on our show. And we got introduced to your book. You are an author. This is great. This is The Modern Fire Officer, written by Jared Vermeulen, and we're going to get into what this book is about a little bit with you as well. Jared, if you just want to give us a little bit of background about where you are, where you're at in your career, you're in the fire service, who you are, and just give us some highlights about who you are, man.
Yeah, great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. We met FDIC, super fun. You guys were great. Peddled a bunch of my books for me.
Yeah.
You guys,
I
drew a crowd.
I think I have a few left. I might use them as stocking stuffers this year too.
Nice. Yeah. So I live in Jupiter, Florida. Like Phil said, golf town. Tiger Woods, all those guys. They all have like restaurants, everything down here. You can see them around sometimes. Born and raised here. It's like a kind of like a blue collar fishing town. So I grew up like on the water, fishing, going to the Bahamas, fishing, diving, surfing. And then I worked for the city of Boca Raton for 18 years, then a captain for 10, driver before that, and did special ops for a long while, and then moved to our training station, and then I do mostly training through the training station. So I get probationary employees, 1 to 2 at a time. We do a lot of training for drivers, lieutenants, captains that come through the training towers in our zone. And our department's about 8 stations. It is 8 stations. It's got about 250 combat, and then we have our administration. But the city itself, we got a lot going on. In my zone, we have an executive airport that does about 130 to 150,000 flights a year, and most of those are larger personal jets. We have FAU, we have Winter University in their zone, we have I-95, we have old folks zones, we have commercial, we have residential, we have light industrial, canals, like you name it. There's a microcosm there of just stuff. And so it even though it's not a big city, so to speak, we do get like a lot of pretty interesting calls, and that's kind of helped me to hopefully be a little bit more well-rounded on some of the call volume stuff, and being able to teach and help train some of the guys that are coming through.
Right.
But
it sounds like you're living in an exciting area with lots of challenges. We did touch on, like at the beginning of the episode, we're going to talk about Katrina a little bit, and obviously you're in an area that gets a lot of hurricane action.
Yeah.
And the three of us now on this show, this episode, we're all firefighters. We're in the fire service, have had a lot of history and background. And we're all coming from places. Phil and I obviously came from the same department, and now I'm out here in Whitefish. There are other things out here that are trying to kill you. I've got a video that's we can take a look at. This is what you get when you come out here. You get grizzly bears that want to chase you. So we're going to take a look at this video real quick. This is out in Glacier National Park. I just hiked this last week. This is a freaking brown bear running past these people, chasing these mountain goats, trying to kill them and get some lunch. That's how quick that shit happens out here. But we're all dealing.
Dude.
But we're all dealing.
You want to leave your mountain goat jacket at home that day,
Yeah. You don't want to have had lamb the night before.
I've got a question, Will. So in the west side of Rockford, had a lot of stabbings, a lot of shootings. East side, you have a lot busier streets, a lot of extrications, motor vehicle accidents. I've never been to a bear attack. So what is the treatment plan, the trauma protocol for a bear attack on something like that?
I think it's just your last rites.
Okay. Just, well, go with God, brother. You had a good
run.
Go
with God.
Go with God.
Where's your closest
they
trauma
do have
facility?
a couple of them. Yeah, I actually had, that was like one of the first questions I asked out here, and they did say, yeah, every now and a great while, and they don't happen very often, but then they say that, and then there was actually, and then not that long ago, there was actually a bear mauling in Glacier National. Glacier National is huge, so it's actually quite a ways away from where I'm at right now. I'm very close to Glacier National, the west entrance, but where that bear mauling happened was actually pretty deep into, I think it was like backwoods of Glacier. But anyways, that was just a little bit of lightheartedness about, we're all faced with serious challenges in the fire service. Nothing more challenging than what's breaking out of Minneapolis, which is the heartbreaking tragedy that just rocked Minneapolis on August 27th. This is obviously referring to the school, the mass that was happening at Annunciation Catholic Church and School. And we will not say the shooter's name. We will not give any notoriety to this asshole. But this individual did arm himself with a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol. I love for the left to figure out that one, because they'll have to figure out how to ban all of that. But anyways, the outcome of this was that there were 2 children that were killed, ages 8 and 10, and 18 others that were wounded, most of them being children. And this is just, unfortunately, this is all too occurring. And, I just kind of wanted to touch on the fact that this does seem like we're opening up our news every day, however you get your news input, and there's another shooting, right? There's some things about this one that I kind of find I want to be equal in the approach of, I don't really care what this person's motivation was. I'm just curious what you guys think of what are the things that we can do to prevent these things from happening. And is that really even a realistic question anymore? Is this the way of life these days? Is there a better way that we can go about it as a whole? Because obviously we're all going to fall on one side of the line or the other, or one side of the fence or the other, however you want to phrase that. But, like the mayor came out on this one and said, we don't need your thoughts and prayers. Is like, I kind of respected that he just said that out loud. Like, he made a point to say, like, these kids were actually already in church praying. Okay. So then the mayor just come out and said, we don't need thoughts and prayers. Okay. So now
I want to push back on
from
that.
There. Go ahead. Do it, Phil.
That's bullshit that we don't need thoughts and prayers. We definitely need prayers. We need more than that. But why is someone 5,000 miles away? Why can't they pray? Right? This is a group of people who have been targeted, Christians and Catholics, especially by these demonic forces, that people that want to continue to do it, whether it's mental health or whatever. But you look in the eyes of these people, and I will say a name of one person, because you can go look at, this is top page news. You can see the picture of the person who did this crime and killed these people in cold-blooded murder, right? But you can go back to Dylan Roof. Look at the face of these people. They look exactly the same. They're dead behind the eyes. There's mental health issues there. And what happened in 2012? What did we do as a federal government? We stopped funding mental health. And what has happened since then? There's a big push for mental health around the country, but you took away services. Here in Rockford, we had a institute called Singer Mental Health. What happened in 2012, Chief? It closed. Where did all those people go? Onto the street. So now we have all these people with mental health issues who aren't taking medications, who aren't being overseen, who are now committing crimes or living very unhealthy lifestyles and poor lifestyles. And it costs more money now to be able to support these people in their certain lifestyles that they do live. So, but going back to the prayer thing, I think this is yet again an attack on Christianity, attack on Catholicism itself. Jared, I don't know where you line up on this, but you had Jen Psaki also come out and say prayers. We don't need prayers. Like, no, we do need prayers, because in my belief, God has a plan. It might not be the plan that I want, but I do believe in that. And I believe that there was something else to be done here. It's a tragedy. We don't know the overall plan, but I can still pray. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to tell people not to pray, That's just an attack on what we believe as like I said, Christians and Catholics. And I think it's disrespectful. Yet again, these are people that don't believe in God. And if they do, they're lying about it. But to say that we don't need prayers, I don't respect that at all. Continue to pray, right? Maybe that's what's wrong, is there's not enough people praying. So to say stop praying, look at our society, look what's happened in the past 50 years since the 1960s. You've seen decline in religious rates all across the country, across all religions, right? So I think maybe that's where we are. We are no longer a religious society.
I think that where I want to drive with that, and I want Jared, I want you to jump in here, but what Phil just said, I don't think that we're off the mark here on what you're saying versus what I'm interpreting the mayor to be saying, is that he was saying the children themselves were literally praying. They were there praying. I think he was calling to a different action. And again, I mean, we're talking about the mayor of Minneapolis. I mean, you saw the same videos that I have. You got the governor, fluffy pants there that stands behind him, and it's all a political forward facing to the community. Once again, this happens everywhere. So I'm really not going to go down the road of like politics on this one. I'm looking at it more from the point of view of that he just came straight out and said, what are we going to do to stop this? And I don't know the answer. Jared, I'd love for you to come in here, but like Phil said, obviously we do have a problem with mental health and underfunding.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. Like with Phil, like I agree. Like obviously you can pray away. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and we should do that. I think maybe I didn't hear the statement exactly, the context of it. Maybe they were trying to say, look, we need action. We need action. We need action. But we need prayers and action. And I think the real losers right now, when you talk about mental health, is the kids. Because you look at school shootings in general, it really feels like a Western American problem. And there's an assault on children in this country where kids are fragile, right? And they're caught within these differing ideas where they're told, that you could be a boy, you could be a girl, you can be all these different things. And what happens is kids that actually have mental health problems, instead of them getting the help that they need, they're just pushed down a path of a mental health path that is not helping them at all. That's the emasculation of boys, to where it's like, oh, the fragility of children is real. When I first started having kids, then I really realized like kids will believe what you tell them. Like if your son comes to you and is like, oh, should boys wear dresses too? And you're like, oh, absolutely, absolutely, they should. And you should put one on. Do you want to wear one? Here, let me get you a dress. They don't know. You have to teach them these things. They're a sponge, and kids in our society now are confused. They're not getting that type of solid parenting based on morality, based on reason. I mean, logic. And I think what we're seeing is possibly a new meta of shootings, where you're going to have these broken children, right, that are told these things that are different from reality. They're different from biology, and they're going to be broken, and they're going to feel that they have to strike back at society in some way. And unfortunately, like this is another round of a transgender shooting issue. This might be something that is just going to be bigger and bigger. And the unfortunate thing too is that this is generations now of children, right? So to overcome this thing, we're going to have to, get back to reality, get back to real morals, get back to real education. But we're still going to have these generations coming through that are going to feel like they were stolen from in this way, and have these mental issues that aren't handled appropriately.
I think Phil's touching on something there within what you're saying there, Jared, is that we have turned so far away from God and so far away from, again, fill in the blank. I don't care what your religion is. If you have one, I hope it's a loving one. There's people out there that will claim that all religion is loving. I don't think that that's necessarily always the case. Sometimes people take it too far. Sometimes the fundamental of religion, the fundamentals of any religion, they most likely have touches of love and stability within that religious community. And then obviously it's human people that take it too far, right? They create the extreme out of that. So I can probably, again, I'm not a religious scholar by any means. I always claim that I'm a firefighter. That's it. I'm a firefighter. And but at the end of the day, I'm fascinated at all of these types of topics. And to go into what Phil was, I think, really pushing into was this Western culture of ours. Jared, you just touched on that. We have turned so far away from any kind of loving religion and basis within the secular family that we've confused ourselves. We've confused groups of up and coming children that are coming up into the world and going, I don't understand anymore what the adults are telling us. They're kind of, and like you say, that's a very interesting thing about that we have a new meta of suicidal tendencies that are going to go on in this country.
It's what Phil said. He said it's demonic. It is demonic because these children that might be confused, they might need real help, are being told that you are this other gender, you are this other thing. We're going to help you to act on it. At a young age, we're going to give you different drugs that will suppress the right hormones. We're going to mutilate you. How sick is that? It's like the most disturbing thing ever that you could. It's like, much less doing that to an adult, to do that to a child. It's one of the most disgusting, demonic things that you could possibly do. And I feel the big issue is that's not going to go away. We're going to feel the effects of these generations undergoing this terror.
I think the biggest thing we're trying to find a new solution to these things. The problem is we had solutions that were working 40, 50, 60 years ago. We've gone away from those things. Now we're trying to look for that new solution, whether it's gun control. Well, gun control is not the problem. When you actually take a look at gun violence in this country, and we like to say, well, America's the worst and we're the worst with guns. Well, added into that gun violence are suicide deaths, suicide rates. You take those out, we're in, the 40s or 50s of actual gun crimes and gun violence. But we lump everything in there, and it's a stats, figures lie, liars figure, again, and that's what it is. When you look at those certain things, people are committing suicide in other countries. I mean, Canada, they'll help you, right? Do it. It's government funded at that point. So, once you remove those things, you look at it, we're much safer than what we think and what we're told we are. The problem is it's not a gun violence crisis, except in certain areas, right? It is a mental health crisis that we're in. We've been saying it. We've been screaming it. We're on the street. We know, we see it. 20 years ago, I was not picking up the same type of patients I am today. Right? Because there's no facilities for those people anymore. There were things in place for them. Now there's not. So now I mean, when you look at this increase in call volume, Jared, we call them code P calls right here. We'll get dispatched for a code P. It's a psych patient. The increase in those call numbers have doubled, tripled. I don't, but across the country, they've increased. Right? We've all seen it happen. So we know what we're talking about when we're saying it because we're front lines on the street, seeing these people, not getting the help that they need. And it's not that they need to go to jail, right? But that's where they end up. And they go to jail. They're there for a day or two. They get released and they're back on the street. And then the cycle continues. And that's the biggest thing. We just keep transporting the emergency room. They leave and they walk right out and we go the next day and we do it again. And round the cycle goes. So we know what we're dealing with. The problem is, unfortunately, none of us are politicians or in politics to make a change. And even if we were, we probably wouldn't get the change that we want. But when we talk about those things, it's now, like I said, obviously there is gun violence crisis in certain places, Chicago being one of them. Minneapolis is no different. The day prior, 4 miles away from where this shooting took place, there was another mass shooting, 1 dead, 6 injured.
Right.
Didn't hear about that one. That didn't make the media. That didn't make the news. It probably made the local news for, the 5:30, 5 o'clock evening news there. But that wasn't a national story.
We can continue to dissect that a little bit because, I mean, you bring up a good point about these big, metro cities that have their gun problems. And again, I always have to jab at Chicago because it's like they have literally the strictest gun laws in their city, and they have, very high gun violence. But banning the gun, sorry, I'm not here for it. I don't want to have that if you want to have a conversation about gun control, and I understand having measures. I mean, you shouldn't allow just anybody to walk into a gun shop and be able to buy a gun necessarily. Now, if you want to go down the strict constitutional Second Amendment right, and that everybody has the right to that, okay, all right, okay, let's maybe test that a little bit. It goes back to mental stability. It just keeps coming back to that, and a point to that is, we've had, since I've been here in Montana, obviously as I was making my move out here, we all know about the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho shooting, right? The mass shooting that happened out there, the firefighters that were killed there. And, I don't recall ever reading or seeing that Coeur d'Alene, Idaho had a gun problem. We just had a mass shooting happen in Anaconda, Montana. I don't know of any evidence or statistics that say that Anaconda, Montana had a gun violence problem. The connectivity of all of this ends up being mental health. Mental health, instability is the connecting tissue between all of these mass shootings.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted. I mean, not just the mental health, it's the destruction of the nuclear family, right?
Yes.
It's education issues. It's the lack of community. People are like alone. Like, it reminds me of the hashtag alone together type thing. Like, all it's like total nonsense, right? The social media's effect on kids and everything. Kids are just assaulted, but like the moment they're born, it's crazy, with social media and pressures and different things that I feel like we really didn't grow up with. Even with like with my own kids, with the shooting in Minneapolis, I was getting ready to bring my two kids, they're 10 and 7, to school. And so I was watching the news and, the school shootings on, whatever. And they're looking at it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to bring these kids to school.
Yeah.
This is not great. Hey, have fun at school today. Never mind that.
Right.
I feel like, in a way, it's all those things put together. And if we don't have strong parenting, strong community, strong values, in the country, then those things are just going to chip away till there's nothing left. And then we're now seeing what the ugly head of this thing is rearing, is these types of shootings, this types of violence, this types of disconnection, to where, and not just for those people, to where, they're doing it, but the normalization of it. No one's like that.
The normalization of it is, that's the part that's disturbing, right?
Yeah, I mean, no one, you see that on the news in Minneapolis, no one's surprised. They're not like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe it. They're like,
it's funny you bring up the news. I noticed, so I dug into this topic a little bit before the episode. I wanted to see what other, the broadcasting was. And I picked up on something that was, I'm pretty sure was purposefully done in this situation, because this person was identifying as transgender. It was very evident that they made a point to just call this individual the shooter. In any other situation where there isn't this transgender issue or a topic that's, bleeding into the conversation, is always, a white male, went into, a place and shot a bunch of people. So they'll call out the gender very, very easily. But when this situation, they were purposefully like, we're just going to say the shooter. And the Minneapolis officials, as they were calling for unity, they wanted to make sure that they weren't scapegoating. And we want to make sure too, that if you're listening and viewing to our episodes on Original Firefighter, we're not scapegoating anything. We want to drill down to the brass tacks of what has happened in any situation, in every situation. And I don't care if you want to tell me that this person is identifying as a transgender. A fucking human being went in and shot a bunch of fucking kids. And that is just absolutely wrong. And we're so disturbingly blinded by all the noise, and yet we just can't seem to turn back to what Phil is pointing out. Get back to the root of any society, which is your family, unit structure, basic education, and humanity towards one another. And I got to say that religion definitely can play a part, even if it's at the minor level. If you don't want to identify that the religion is a thing for you, have some faith, have some spirituality, and I think that goes a long way in itself.
Well, just remember too, this country was founded on Christian ideals, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And yet again, we have, the freedom of religion, which is awesome, and not many other countries have that, right? So we still have that. It was founded on that idea, but still, this country was founded on Christian ideals. In God we trust, right? God-given rights. That's one of those things that this country's gotten off base. For sure, and we need to, like you said, get back to that. I would like to talk about one thing. There was a 5th grade student. Now, I haven't heard the name of his friend, but this 5th grader, Weston Halsney, told reporters he ducked under pews when the shots began. He covered his head, and he was shielded by a friend. I don't know the friend's name. I wish I did, because I'd love to say it. But that was a heroic move by another child to cover his friend. He was shot in the back.
Yeah.
Right. And anybody that doesn't even think to have feeling or emotion with something like that said, like me just saying that, I'm like, we've been on those calls. We've seen that. We've experienced children getting shot in the crossfire of gang shit or just a random shooting. I've been on those calls. It tears you up every time. And as callous as we become in the firefighter profession, public safety, cops too, right? We become callous and the black humor, that dark humor that we have to have in order to survive in this career for 30 plus years.
Right.
You still feel it, especially in your personal life, right? If I was at work right now and I was talking about it, it would be probably a lot different and my emotions would be a lot different. Here at home, in my studio, different emotions are hitting me right now when just reading that. This kid is a hero, and his name should be out there, and people should be talking about that, because even in these times of tragedy, in these times of terrible, terrible times and things happening, there's still things that are good that we can take away from. And maybe we stop talking about the bad shit and we talk about the good shit that comes out of this. This little guy who's, and yet again, I'm praying for his recovery, his fast, healthy recovery to live a good, normal life after his injury of protecting his friend. I'm going to say a prayer.
This episode is brought to you by Strike the Box Cigars, Pipes, and Tobacco. Whether you're a seasoned aficionado or just starting your journey into the world of fine tobacco, Strike the Box has what you need. From the finest cigars to premium loose leaf tobacco, Strike the Box delivers on quality in a welcoming space where you can enjoy a smoke and good company. Additionally, Strike the Box specializes in vintage pipe restoration. We're talking estate pipes brought back to life with craftsmanship that borders on art. Got Grandpa's old briar gathering dust? Let the crew at Strike the Box make it smoke like new. Check out their full list of vintage pipes for sale at striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois. Soak in the aroma and talk shop with real tobacco lovers from the American Fire Service. Strike the Box, where fire, flavor, and tradition meet. Again, that's striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois. It's awesome. That's the kind of individual, a small child like that should become the beacon for everything. That
should be headline news.
That should be headline news for sure. Jared, curious. Obviously, again, you're down in that region of the country, Florida. Right now where we're all podcasting from, we're sort of now representing areas of at least 3/3, or let me correct that.
3/3.
3/3. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
We got it all, baby.
3/4 of the country or something of that nature. Math is hard.
Yeah, we do have 3 different time zones going on here.
We do. Yeah.
Nice.
But the thing is that what do you see down in your neck of the woods, when it comes to these mass shootings and preparation for it now, where you're at? Are we kind of all doing the same thing now in the fire service, getting ready for these types of events?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot more serious, especially after Stoneman Douglas down here.
Yeah.
And not just for the preparation, but also for the aftermath with like wellness and peer support and that. But I mean, we're still not ready for that. You can't ever be ready for that. But we've definitely been doing run-throughs at colleges with actors, trying to get an idea of how to respond what are the lessons that we're learning from these things, how to set up the call from the start so that it can go smoothly. It's just one of those things where you got to hope the right people in the right places when that, if God forbid those things take place, and that
how does your 911 center call type that? Obviously it's based on information, but is there a tipping point when they get certain information where they put it into the CAD and it triggers that it's going to be a mass casualty response?
Yeah. So we actually had a false call. I want to say it was about maybe a year and a half ago. We just happened to be shopping at a grocery store right next to the high school in our zone, and it came in as a confirmed mass shooting, multiple students down, multiple phone calls. This is the real deal type thing. We just happened to be like right there, right? So we ripped out of the parking lot. We were right there. PD was showing up. I called for because we've been training to do this. I've been going through this, in my head, talking to my crew how this is how we're going to deal with this thing. So we knew right away, because we're right near 95. We're like, close down. PD close down the road right here by 95. Close this down. Close everything down. We opened up this whole area. We started excluding. PD was setting up. They were going in. We had our units. I literally called for the entire city. We put our flak jackets on, helmets. We started getting our gear together. PD went in to start clearing different sections of the school. We had our rescues, which is our ambulances, start coming in as they were coming in, like set up for everything, anything and everything. Spike bags, do everything ready in the back. Get your trauma bags ready, and your flak jackets, because we're setting up teams. And it came out that it was I forget how they called it. It was
swatting
where
call?
They take swatting call, exactly.
A swatting call,
and, yeah. And so obviously everyone stand down, but
sure.
At the end, I was talking with the battalion chief that set up the unified command with PD, and I said, take a look here, and man, this went pretty well. We had all the units in, we had all this stuff, and granted, if the situation was real, we don't know how it would have went truly, but we were able to do a really good setup, which I was super proud of, and we were able to learn a lot from that false call that we thought was real. So we didn't go into it thinking this is training. We thought that was real, and so I asked him to write an attaboy for everyone that showed up and all that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can do enough training on that. And the problem is all the other training that we have to do too. And it's a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to, where does the priorities lie? You know what I mean? High risk, very low event, or the more common event that we run all the time, that it's a difficult thing. And that's part of the modern fire officer. That's kind of like the book thing. That's why I named it that, is that I really feel like, and you guys can confirm or deny, I really feel like this is not the fire service of our forefathers, not anywhere near what we're expected to do, and to the level that we're expected to do it in the face of changes to societal norms, to the frequency of shootings and natural disasters.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, we're now building a Swiss Army knife out of a firefighter, and that's what you get nowadays. You're absolutely right. It is not the fire service of the past, and it doesn't necessarily, I mean, everything should evolve. I don't have any issue with that. I don't have a problem with firefighters and the fire service absorbing a lot of those things because if you look at the entire totality of public emergency service, law enforcement in and of itself is a huge boulder, right? So it's kind of, I understand that we have to have a dedicated law enforcement group that only handles that, that's what they do. And I understand there's places, and even here in Flathead County where I'm at, it's the sheriff's department that apparently they're the divers. Okay. Whereas a lot of times dive teams are absorbed by the fire department. And at the end of the day, I don't, there's a little bit of trading and maybe a little bit over in this basket and a little bit over in this basket. But by and large, the fire service is just answering any and every type of call anymore. And that, in one sense, I think is okay because it makes a good firefighter. I mean, you can be a really awesome firefighter with all of those technical disciplines and backgrounds on top of being just a good nozzleman, being a good person on the truck that gets to the roof and cuts that hole. That's awesome. On the other side, I can also hear it's too much. It's getting to that place where how much more can we absorb?
And do it well.
And do it well. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, somewhat of it is job security for us, right? Fires aren't as prevalent as they were 20, 30 years ago. Right. We're not going on the same amount of fires. So by us taking over EMS, right, it's another part of job security. But now what's involved with that really expands. Unfortunately, I think every department across the country is understaffed and overworked. And if you want to continue to give us more roles and responsibilities and to continue to do more in the city, then you have to give us the manning, the proper manning in order to do it. And I've never heard a fire department in this country yet, and I listen to a lot of different podcasts, talk to a lot of people from around the country, especially having been involved with the Honor Guard for so many years and going out to Colorado Springs for fallen firefighter memorials. I've never heard a firefighter say, yeah, it's awesome. We're fully staffed. We have everything we need. We do this. Never heard it. Right. So it's one of those things. If you want to continue to provide the best public safety that we can, we need the equipment. We need the manpower. We need the training to do it. And that's what's going to take a hit. Right. We know, we've talked about it before, 90% of the fire department budget is staffing. Right. So that doesn't leave a whole lot left for everything else. So what gets cut first? What you've seen a lot of times now is training. Training is one of the biggest things. Illinois is a great state to be a firefighter in because of the resource that the state actually has. You have the Illinois Fire Service Institute at University of Illinois in Champaign. Great resource there. And then they have the regional different areas. But now, those classes, some of them are pretty expensive, right? Some are free and they get grant funding from federal grants from that. But there's a lot of classes that are expensive. If I'm willing to make that commitment myself to pay for those classes. But it is nice when the department can help out with those things and pay for those things. Now, unfortunately, we do have a lot of firefighters that are collecting a paycheck. They're coming in, they're going to do the job, they're going to show up, and then they leave. They're there for once every 3 days. They come in, they do their work, and they go home. So if that's the only time that I can grab them to do training, well, that's what we're going to do to overcome the cutting our training budget. But man, it sure would be nice for the department to invest in our training when we say we're a progressive department, right? And that's all around the country. That's everywhere. It's one of those things. Another thing is the apparatus. Look at Chicago. Their apparatus are failing them.
Crazy.
LA was the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? We all see, if you have a maintenance shop that can do it, they're overburdened, they're overworked, they're understaffed, right? So it's one of those things. You continue to pile on more and more and give us less and less. It's one of those things with public safety. If you want the best, you have to, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. That's just, I'm proud to say, like, you answer the call, we do it all. But I mean, you have to have the support underneath you to be able to do that, the tools, just to know that when you go do hard calls like that you're going to have the support of the administration behind you too, when you choose to, like, I'm going to go above and beyond, that they see that, support you to a reasonable degree, but also that there's a little bit of grace too, because it's impossible to get everything right all the time, and
in a matter of seconds.
In a matter of seconds. I mean, I think it makes me think of like special ops, right? When they went to go get Osama bin Laden, right? Took months and months of planning. They rebuilt like the facility. They, trained in that specific environment. They looked over every single worst case scenario. We don't have any of that. I mean, maybe you have some, building surveys, we have whatever, but basic training, whatever. But when we get into some of those situations, it is like, you're there, man. That's it. You're flying from the seat of your pants, and you're using all that training, all the, experience that you've had before, hopefully the smarts of the guys around you to get these things done. And 9 times out of 10, the fire service, they get it right because we care. We work hard to do that. Sometimes we don't, and it might be out of our control. And to have that kind of support too is nice.
How many of those calls have you had where you definitely are right that 9 out of 10 times we'll get the job done and do it pretty damn good? How about that one call where you're like, ooh man, we've never been here before. This is a new one. There were no training objectives that had been identified for this one just yet, and that's really that brings us full circle to the Rescue Task Force, RTF, or whatever you guys, any department out there that preps for a mass shooting event. Even this coming week, I'm going to be doing some Rescue Task Force training in our area here, and but even that right there, like we weren't doing that kind of training just. Like 5 years ago, we weren't doing that training. And now it's everywhere because it has to be. Because again, we're not really answering what the problem is, which is the mental health of this country and so on and so forth. So the Band-Aid approach is, train up the firefighters so that they can be the ones to go in and get these people after they've been shot, stabbed, whatever. I mean, and that's, it goes way beyond the shootings, right? It's the shootings, it's stabbings, it's driving through a parade with a van. If they can think it up.
That was called a motor vehicle accident, by the way. That was a motor vehicle accident. It wasn't a domestic terrorist thing.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Again, good politics there. That's very sarcastic. That's bullshit.
Real quick,
Jared,
good. you were talking about when they went the hunt for Osama bin Laden, when they got him and all the training, the months of training that they did to prepare for it. And what happened? 2 helicopters went in, 1 crashed. Yeah. They had something they had to adapt and overcome. I mean, literally something bad happened. We can't control every little piece of the outcome. We can prepare for it as best we can. Now, the good news is that's one of those things that they actually trained for. What happens if one of the birds goes down? They knew how to handle it because they trained for that. There was a contingency in place for that. So when we talk about the fire service and the lack of training or the less training, and then now it's the more you go too, it's less experience. You're doing one job more than the other, so you're getting less job doing the one job that your main role is as a firefighter. Right? We focus on a lot more EMS because that's where our experiences come from. Most departments are 80% EMS, 20% fire. I think that's even changing even more now. It's increasing EMS, decreasing fire. So you're losing that experience too from that. So without that training, how do you have that? You need that experience. Books are great. I love books. I think, but at a certain point too, those experiences are the big thing also that really help you out.
This episode of the Original Firefighter Podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today. What's interesting, Phil, is that I hear you saying that we're obviously higher percentage-wise on the EMS calls and fires are declining. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I think overall we're more fire aware. Also, we have less combustible materials in our home. The trade-off there is that when they do burn, it's super hot, and it's very, very caustic to us, and to the public. But I do push back. I stand firm on this. I cannot stand it when I hear we're an EMS department that sometimes fight fires. Fuck off.
You're not pushing back against me. I agree with you. I'm saying we're just not training in the fire stuff as much because we're not getting the same amount of experiences. Your title is still firefighter.
Yes, you are a firefighter.
Yeah.
You are.
I didn't say paramedic firefighter. I said firefighter.
No. I know that. This isn't you. This is, we'll hear it in the comments. We're an EMS department.
Don't turn me into an EMS nerd here, okay? I'm a good paramedic, but God, I'm a firefighter.
Test. I wear it very strong and proud on my shoulder as a badge of honor. The bigger and beyond the rhetoric, the bigger thing is this: we have to be trained for all of the possibilities. But the one thing that can really bite you in the ass is to be an ill-prepared firefighter. That still is the call. That still is the incident. And coming right up on its heels, I've always had mad respect for our divers. Just because, diving is, again, it's just kind of like we're not on land anymore and we're underwater, and usually you're going for something that's bad anyways. So now you're underwater, So
yeah. It's awful in Florida.
That, hazardous materials response is a juggernaut, but firefighting is still to the core of who we are and what we should be prepared for. And what you guys have been saying is that there are so many things that we now have to be prepared for that we end up sacrificing a lot of that training that's still needed to be able to answer the other basic needs of any community.
It's the jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Right.
And we get a lot of issues then with the mentorship, where you got generations that are leaving the fire department and they're not imparting that knowledge, or they're unwilling to impart that knowledge, which is really sad, because you get like the generational differences. Well, I can't believe, this guy or girl can't do his own laundry. Then, well, they're in the door. Like, show them how to do the laundry then. What does it matter? Like, take a little pride that you get to be the one that gets to do that. Who knows what happened in their lives? if they didn't have someone, a strong, mentor in their life to show them this stuff. Guess what? You can be one. And that's going to be, I think,
that's in your book, isn't it? You touch on all that it becomes the responsibility of the firefighters inside the firehouse to bring in, the younger firefighter, rather than just stepping on their neck and saying, "Oh, you don't relate, you don't get this, you don't get that." Yeah, and I have fallen victim to that. I mean, I will be honest about that. I've now, can claim I've been in the fire service for 34 years. That's been a minute. I know. I've been in for 34 years. I got
Did you start when you were 5? Oh.
91.
Must have been 5 years old. You look great. You look great.
17 years old.
Not a wrinkle on the face. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you notice that I take,
fresh Montana air.
Take care. Yeah.
Skincare routine takes about 45 minutes. It costs them $200 a month.
I'm pulling a Benjamin.
You're Benjamin Button in this?
Yeah. So, but no, Jared, you do talk about that mentorship and taking care of the up and coming, and not just leaving them, hanging out to dry. Hopefully no one is doing that. I mean, obviously we need the veteran firefighters in any firehouse to bring that new firefighter in and say, this is, not only is this how you fight fire, this is how you start IVs, this is how you do chest compressions, and on top of that, this is how you respond to all these other call types. And oh, by the way, you have to know how to cook a meal.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. You got to get on probation. You better cook some good meals and make some nice coffee,
Yeah. And if you mess up one time, you are going to hear about it.
Oh yeah. You got a new nickname until you mess up again.
Well, I was gonna ask you, have you seen, especially with the younger generation coming in now, the desire to work less, to not work, to not put in the effort, to just be okay with sitting by and not doing the same amount of work? Like if it's a training day, like I'm good, I'm not going to do as much, or just, people in general, just getting involved into working in general, working a physical job.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's two things. I think some of the younger generations are more prompt based. So they just don't realize that they should be doing that thing. right? So instead of just getting mad at them, like, hey, what the heck, the bay's not clean. If you just said, hey, it's a really good idea, clean the bay, people respect, oh, okay, and they go out and do it. So a lot of that is just prompt based. They just don't realize that it should be done. And until you kind of instill,
because when they were a kid, they were never
routine,
given a list of chores to
right,
do.
Right. Or something, who knows? They just let them know, give them the power of knowledge first, to say, this is a great thing, get these things done. The other side of that, I think, is the actual attitude of the environment of the firehouse. So if you're allowing that, where like people are like, yeah, I don't feel like, training today, or I'm gonna lay around, and there's not like a good reason for it, like a really good reason for it, then that should be a problem. And they're gonna learn from that type of an attitude. And that's why like having a strong leader, strong informed leader is so important, because there's definitely ways to motivate, to kill that type of an attitude. And a lot of it has to do with your attitude, obviously, and your work ethic. So when you're doing those things, people are going to take notice and start doing it too. If you've ever been to a firehouse where, say the BC comes by and dinner's done or whatever, he starts washing dishes. How quickly does everyone, get up, like start cleaning something, get some work done, holy crap, and that's exactly why they do it. I hope. And that's why it works, is because you're showing that example. They become acutely aware that, they're working hard. I'm not, most people are going to see that and be like, no, I'm going to fix that, because they want to be a firefighter. You just got to tap into that, that feeling that they had when they got hired. They wanted to do that. There's a reason they went to school, that they jumped through all the hoops. They did the testing. They got on probation. They whatever. Tap into that. That's a motivation that you can harness, in those situations for you. But if you just, right off the bat say, oh, this guy is freaking lazy, forget him, write him off. Don't even prompt them. Don't even show them like, hey, for the daily chore list, if you do X, Y, and Z, get it done, whatever. Give them a chance to even do it, before we kick them to the curb. There's a lot of that inner station communication that has to take place.
Part of the issue is that you end up with, if you look at the cross section of firefighters in any firehouse, inevitably you will end up with an individual that's a veteran firefighter and they've checked out. And you have to go up to that individual and say, hey, remember when you wanted to get on this job, you told the commission the person you were going to be, the firefighter that you intended to be for the career that you were choosing to get into. I think we all forget that. That's not a criticism towards, just any one particular person. It's even at myself, that we all kind of forget that, because you've just been hammered and burned, a little bit too much, and you need that reset sometimes,
Yeah, you got to find the love, and you can get a little sneaky too. And you got someone that's a little demotivated, say it's like an older driver or something like that. I don't know, and you get someone in that
the older driver, right?
The older driver. We bash the older drivers. Never the older captain, of course.
Sure, right. It's never the officer.
Yeah, never the officer.
That's not true.
Yeah. But anyone that's like not motivated like that you want to put in a position to where I'm going to motivate them now to go and reach out, train, do whatever. You can validate them. You can flatter them. All these type of things work. It's all positive type communication where, you want someone to mentor the next driver coming up. They're a driver. Go to them, be like, hey, dude, you are great at your position. You've been doing it for years. Like, I remember on this fire, you did X, Y, Z, and you killed it. He's coming up. I told him you were one of the best to learn from. I was hoping you could show him this thing. I'm going to come out with you, and I'll just be like the guy in gloves. You tell me what to do, and I'll help like you do this training. You better believe they'll get out of the recliner 99 times out of 100. So there's definitely like ways to enact movement, training, motivation, all those different things. It's finding those, right, and using those to your advantage, and that just kind of makes that whole environment better. You get an environment people are a lot more feel safe in. It's positive, and it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's definitely not easy communicating constantly to everybody, on their own terms, understanding who that person is, figuring out how to motivate them specifically, because everyone's different, but the juice is worth the squeeze. That's for sure.
You're basically saying, in a nutshell, you're saying lean into people. Don't, lean into them. Like, get to know what they actually are. And especially officers too. Don't be afraid to go up to someone and just surprisingly tell them you're doing a great job. If they deserve it, don't sugarcoat it, don't bullshit it. But if someone deserves it, don't forget to tell them you're doing a great job.
Yeah, man, it goes a long way.
I think it's the little things that we can do as officers too, right? After the boys, and I say boys because I don't have a female on my crew, so I'm going to say boys, not, I don't want to get into topic, but, after the boys, after a fire, right? They busted their balls.
Right.
We get in the truck. It's like, hey, everyone, great job.
Absolutely.
That little thing goes a long way, especially to the younger guys, to the recruits or probationary firefighter, to hear the officer say that to them. Because I did watch. I was with that person. I'm on a ladder truck where I've got, 4 people, 2 inside, 2 outside. That's how we split our truck. Right. So I'm with my recruit, my driver is with maybe a more senior guy, maybe another recruit potentially. But for them to hear that we notice the strong work that they're putting in, and like you said, Will, mean it. Right. And if it wasn't, obviously that's another discussion. I've been involved in those discussions, but at least, when there is good work that's done, recognize that, acknowledge that, let them know that we notice that too. And it's that, like you said, it's that not that demotivator, it's that motivator for sure. Because then, you've discussed before on the previous podcast you were on about, us doing and putting in the work too, us doing the little bit extra that they see, then they're going to say, well, I want to do that too. Right. And that is that motivator there. And I think that's something that we all need to do. And like you said, it's, if they're around a negative environment, they're going to be negative. One toxic person on that crew can bring down everybody. It's a cancer. It's going to spread. But
yeah,
we've all experienced that. I'm sure we've all had that negative person. We've got to try and turn them around. That's where you got to focus your attention, at least for the immediate, right? Fix that psychology there, and hopefully it settles itself, and then we can all have fun and come to work and keep each other safe.
Where can I get that t-shirt? Well, we got the answer. Go to originalfirefighter.com, where you will find any of the t-shirts or hats that you see us wearing on the show. For every purchase at originalfirefighter.com, we give 5% back to supporting mental health and wellness for first responders. Go to originalfirefighter.com, join in the community, join in and become an original firefighter.
I got a quick story on that, and I'm telling it from the point of view of when you hear something about like what I'm about to share. When you hear this, don't tolerate it. I had an officer in the firehouse that I ran out of. I had a new fire officer. We had just finished up a structure fire. It was a alleyway fire with a couple garages, and I think there was a boat and some cars going. It was all going. It was a really good fire, actually. But there was a driver engineer from another company, and this individual was having trouble pumping. I mean, it wasn't going well for that individual. And so when we got back to our quarters, we were all in the kitchen, and I remember standing next to the stove, and I was having a cup of coffee. It was early morning. There were a couple of brand new firefighters at the kitchen table, and then this other fire officer. And this fire officer proceeded to say, call out how that driver engineer had poorly done. So called it out at the table, and then went on to say, I wouldn't go and help that individual if my life depended on it. There was some angst there, right? I took it in and I processed it, and because you don't want to overreact as in certain situations, I just kind of have a mindset to say, okay, I'm going to deal with this. And I took it to the side, off record, like nobody was around, but I was like, if you ever say that again, we're going to have a bigger issue. I don't care what your issue is. You don't like somebody. Grow up. But just to think that you're not going to go over and help somebody on the fire ground, even if they are a poor firefighter and not, what do they say, right? We're only as strong as the weakest link. Yes.
Absolutely.
And this individual identified that this driver engineer was having a hard time, and then to go and say, I would never go help that person. Wow. I want you off my company. I want you off my shift as fast as possible. So
it blows me away that people think that they have that luxury in the fire service. Like, I'm just not going to help you. I hate to tell you, they're there for the next 20, 30 years. Like, you can't just be like, I'm not going to help you, in your career or whatever. And if you live in that city, then you're even more crazy because, hey, they could be responding to your house next. Who knows? And that type of attitude, unfortunately, a lot of it stems from some deep insecurities, whether it was because they were out of their league because they had a driver that couldn't fix this, then they were behind the 8 ball, made them look bad, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You got to swallow that up. I tell a lot of the officers coming up, I was like, I hope you got a taste for humble pie because you're going to eat a lot of it when you're an officer. You better love it because you're going to get into these situations where it's not your fault, but it is. It is your fault. Get used to that feeling. And when you have something that goes down like that, it's a big time perspective change, right? Look at that as an opportunity. We have an opportunity to get better instead of just an opportunity to destroy someone. That's stupid. That's not going to help anybody. Especially, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help your crew. It's not going to help the citizens that you run on. Look at it as an opportunity to get better and a challenge. You put if you wear white shirts, you put the white shirt on to say that I'm going to do that.
I couldn't even imagine if Phil, you chime in here because you're still on, the busiest ladder in the city right now, aren't you? Right? I mean, I think so. Fire-wise?
Unfortunately, I think ladder 5 is busier, but actually, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
that's my truck.
They were for
ladder 5.
Yeah, they were for a minute, but they're not anymore because they've got assistance from engine 5 out there.
Truth be told, I gotta just say it this way: every fire company in Rockford, Illinois, to this day, is pretty busy. I mean, there's really no place to hide anymore. But the point I was going to make though was just that, given the story that I just related, I honestly just can't imagine watch it. Like if I was at an emergency scene, a fire ground, car accident, whatever, like I can't personally imagine just watching a firefighter flip and flop and struggle and not going over and helping them, right? Regardless of what my personal relationship is. That goes right outside of my head. I'm like, you really would not go and help that person on that coworker? You're not a rock star yourself.
Like you said, that was a new officer, and he proved that they proved themselves to you at that point. And when I first became an officer, you were the district chief on the other side of town from me. But I knew, even though you were my district when I was at Station 2, right? I was on Ladder 2, mid-year, got transferred to Engine 2 as a senior firefighter, second driver, and then got promoted, went to Ladder 1. But I worked with you for, like you said, so many years I was a blue shirt, right? As you had gone up through your career in the leadership. So you knew who I was, you knew my capabilities, and I knew my role as a firefighter. Things changed. I got promoted. I now had to prove myself in that leadership position as lieutenant now. And I know you grinded me for a minute or two, and there were decisions that I would come to you with, and you would say, let me think about that, right? And you question it, which is good. But then we got to a point to where I think I proved myself to you. You trusted me at that point, knew I knew my role and my job as a first in company officer, to the point to where we had a fire and we weren't even on the initial alarm. It was a multi-family, apartment building, fire in the basement. They were having issues getting it. You called for, I'm going to call it Squad 10 to come there. We arrived on scene. You said, Engine 10, meet me in the front. 10-4, come meet with you. You said, get a line and put that fire out for me. Sounds good. Took my boys. We went inside, got the fire out, right? So at that point, you knew the capabilities, not only of me, but of the crew I was with, because we had proven ourselves to you as a competent, qualified crew to be able to do anything at that point. But it's about proving yourself every step of the way, right? Prove yourself to the people above you, prove yourself to the people below you, show them that you know your job, take pride in that. And if you don't, you're going to have the issues that you had with that new officer. And now, unfortunately, you know, we always say in the fire service, takes 20 years to develop a good reputation, takes 2 minutes to ruin it, right? And that's, unfortunately, that guy's starting behind the 8 ball now with his career as an officer because, you know,
because of a comment
that's
just
aware
really,
of.
at the end of the day, just because of a comment,
Yeah.
and not really realizing your surroundings. And you touch on something that, and Jared, I'm sure you feel this way, and as a captain in your department, I so much enjoyed my last, last couple of years as a chief officer with the crew members, just like Phil and so many others back home. And that is, I got, and it doesn't happen overnight. This does not happen overnight. It takes time. But then when you dial it in with your firefighters, with your with your officers, and the ones that are going to be at the fires with you, man, you really do get some real enjoyment out of watching guys do their trade. Like Phil and his crew, when they would come on an engine 10 and that transition to Phil coming over to ladder 2, and I could just look at Phil and go, I don't have any concerns. He is going to make the right choice. If he has a question, he might take that needed 5 seconds to come over to command, check in with me like, hey, I'm thinking this. What do you think? And I would be like, you know, Phil, you're already on the right track. Go that way and do what you just suggested. Because that's what you need to be able to develop in you know, so if you're in a battalion, and not just your battalion, but know the other battalion groups, you know, like get out there and know what these capabilities are of these individuals and these companies. And when you start to really dial it in, that's when you enjoy the job more so than anything.
Oh yeah, who hates hitting a home run, right? And if you can hit those on multiple levels, I mean, yeah, hell yeah, the game is afoot. We're doing it, man. Yeah. That's
singles win baseball games, brother. Singles.
Right.
Yeah.
Phil's playing the long game.
Yeah, when you're firing on all cylinders,
I'm not mad at a home run.
You put the work in.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're firing on all cylinders because you're putting the work in. I mean, yeah, like what an awesome place to be is a firehouse, right? When you know you get the alarm, you're going to go there, you're going to do a good job, you're not going to get anyone hurt. When you're the officer, when you're the BC, when you're the whatever, and you know who's coming, and you know it's going to get done, and you don't have to worry, and you can have that faith because you put the hard work in. That's a feeling right there. And then the feeling after
Absolutely.
the call, when everyone's looking at each other like, did we just do that? It's like, yeah, you just did that. Pat yourself on the back in a good way, because that's impressive, and there's not a lot of people lining up to do that, to shoulder that responsibility for the community.
Well, we're going to swing into your book here in a little bit. Again, I want to just turn our attention a little bit to the fact that it is the 20th anniversary of Katrina, the Hurricane Katrina, obviously the hurricane that hit New Orleans and that area of Louisiana. Devastatingly hit them hard back 20 years ago. Can you guys believe that it's been 20 years since then?
It's crazy.
I can see.
Time flies.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And talk about, you know, expanding our trade craft as firefighters. You know, now dealing with hurricanes and the fallout of all that type of disaster. I know, you know, recently, Phil, back home there in Rockford, you guys have had some very strong weather that's come through, tornadoes and heavy rains. And it kind of seemed like there for a while, it was just, you know, over, you know, like day after day, you guys were getting hit. And I'm sure, Jared,
beaten down.
Yeah, you guys were getting beaten down. Jared, you obviously just this past year, at the end of 2024, Florida got hit by 2 major hurricanes. But 20 years has passed since Hurricane Katrina, and this one really, you know, it really hit the entire United States, you know, hard. Here's some of the facts. The death toll, nearly 1,392 lives were lost. The damage caused by Hurricane Katrina estimates still they were about 125 billion. Adjusted for today's dollar, that's roughly 20 or 200 billion. The hurricane itself, it displaced 800,000 people, and basically, and then it destroyed 134,000 housing units in New Orleans. So it was obviously very devastating. There was a lot of lessons learned that came out of that incident. Preparation, pre-staging of resources. The fact that I remember seeing it, I'm sure you guys do, the images of like school buses for evacuation. They had been placed, but then they all ended up being underwater anyway, so they were basically useless. I remember the Superdome just basically being, tore apart with people inside. I mean, it was still standing, but apparently it became, a cesspool of human, just too many people inside of one place.
Yeah.
Not a good thing.
Not prepared for living
but anyways,
quarters.
Not prepared. No. But I mean, again, Jared, I mean, you got so given that it's the 20-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, what's your take on hurricanes as they start to barrel down towards us? We'll be getting into hurricane season here again in what, like October, November?
Now, pretty much.
Now?
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
right now. Yeah. It'll be more and more, especially into September, October. But yeah, it's all planning. It's infrastructure. When you talked about Katrina, right? $200 billion on recovery, they could have put maybe $100 billion. If you're going to spend the money, spend it up front. You could spend half of that and updated the 1900s, levy system before all of that took place, and then maybe not even had to spend the extra $100 billion. I don't know. It's hard to say. Hindsight is 2020.
Well, interesting point that you bring up. Well, real quick, one of the things that you're bringing up there is putting in the funding for the infrastructure. So the Army Corps of Engineers, they did go in obviously after Hurricane Katrina. They have apparently as of 2022, they've completed upgrades. I mean, think about that. I mean, it took 18 years to complete upgrades to their levee system. And looks like they spent $14.4 to $15.6 billion for that, for that reconstruction. So,
right.
So
what you're saying is they would have saved $120 billion had they had done it, like Jared said,
right.
Prepared for something, the potential catastrophe to have happened.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's coming, though. A lot of these things, we've been involved with city planning. They know it's coming. It's not a surprise when it is coming. But they just refuse to allocate that money beforehand. It's always has to be reactionary. Yeah, it's always reactionary. But I mean, it goes so far beyond a lot of that stuff. It goes to building code. It goes to education levels, even of the people in that area. If you put money into the education level, and it goes into streets and road infrastructure to even be able to get people out to educate them enough to know, hey, this is dangerous. We're going to get out of here. We're going to get out of here early too, and have the road system to get you out of here. The infrastructure to make sure that everything doesn't crumble when these things take place. And it's not an if, it's a when. Obviously, this is something that will continue to take place every single year, and more. Right. Catastrophic ways. I mean, look at Asheville. Who would have thought, a hurricane coming up through the Gulf is going to completely destroy an area in North Carolina and the surrounding areas. So it's those city planning things where it's like you can't ignore it. It cannot be reactionary. The human toll is much too much. The amount of population density and growth and everything, it's much too much. Like, those things have to be taken a lot more seriously. And the thing that kind of scares me a bit about Katrina, not just that it was reactionary, right? We're going to fix the levees after all of this horror essentially has taken place. But I'm nervous at how much we're actually learning from these massive disasters in certain places. I think on the last podcast, you guys were talking about the wildfires, right? Where this is a problem. It's coming. We should get prepared. This might be bad. And yet there's still no water in the hydrants type thing. So it's like, how much are we really learning?
I can't wrap
20
my head
years
around
later.
It.
It'll take 18 years like the new levees did. So
18 years to get water in the hydrant.
You really strike at something that it does get me triggered, and I'm just honest about that. It gets me triggered that we know that these things are coming in a lot of cases, not every time. but we know that they're coming. We know that the problem is there. I don't know if we're just too quick to take our eye off the ball. And when I say us, again, we've already said on this episode, I mean, the firefighters are in the firehouses training on anything and everything. You can literally pick a day and they're going to be trained on something. And today it's wildland fires, and tomorrow it's response to a hurricane, and the next day it's response to structure fires, and the next day it's going to be response to a mass shooting. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? But we can only be as prepared as those who lead our communities, the elected officials that understand that these are the priorities. It's not your special little projects. It's not. It's basic public security and ensuring that when these things happen, and they will happen, that you have created a situation where we can win the fight and not lose it. That is the responsibility of elected officials. Get it right for once.
And the priorities too. Obviously, this is a super difficult situation. You're trying to prioritize different things within your community that are important, depending on the needs. But I think with Katrina, especially if you watch the documentary on Netflix, that type of destruction is unacceptable.
Absolutely.
To allow that in any way, that you would think that would be such a call to action from all levels of government, from your local municipality all the way up to the federal government. Like, all right, that will never happen again, ever. That's a mark on America to me. When you look at something like that's allowed to take place in America, in what's supposed to be the most wealthy, put together nation, that was allowed to happen. That's pretty sad. What's the answer to that? That's a very difficult thing to say. I don't know. Is it very regional FEMA offices with massive amounts of logistical items on standby? I don't know, but there has to be something, not just fix the levee and hope for the best next time. It's got to be a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
I think some good things that yet again, we know the tragedy, but some good things that did come out of that is the future preparation, like Will had said, for emergency management, right? I mean, over 20 years ago, we weren't talking about NIMS, ICS 700, 800, common terminology, getting on the same page, activating FEMA. What is your logistics look like? What does your whole org chart look like at that point? So I think that is something that did come out of that. Unfortunately, prior to the incident, federal government was reaching out to the local government and state government saying, hey, what do you need? What do you need? And we all know in the fire service, especially emergency management region or area, right, starts local, ends local, so it's got to start somewhere, but you can request those services. But until you do, they can't come in. They're not, Look at what we're going through right now. Trump is trying to, not to take it off topic, but he's trying to activate the National Guard to go into these places. And they're fighting back against that, talking about states' rights or municipality rights. And we don't need it. We don't want it. So you can't have both ways, right? Either we want the resources and we've got to request them, or when we don't get them, there's some blame to go around for, I think it was Mayor Nagin, who was the mayor at the time in New Orleans. And yet again, top-down issues there, right? Requesting the aid, by the time they requested it was too late. Now it's 3 to 5 days before they mobilize and get there because of no more roads. How are they supposed to get there? And then
there's almost always failure. There's almost always failure at multiple levels when these things are the worst of the worst situations, right?
And you want to know what happened, why there was such a delay after the incident happened to where they finally were able to request that aid? There were no sat phones. They couldn't reach out to the federal government to request that aid at that point because all the towers were down. There's no cell phones were working, and they didn't have a satellite phone. So now a lot of municipal government, state government, they have those in place. God forbid anything happens, they can request those resources. But it took them additional days to actually get into contact to request those things. So that's why the delay, especially for Katrina, happened at that point.
And for clarity, when I talk about elected officials and what their job is, I'm not saying that they can't have a focus on, creating nice green spaces and building bike paths and things of that nature. I'm not saying that they can't have things that make your community better. But fundamentally, there are very specific boxes that should be checked first before these special projects, are the before these things, it shouldn't be the reverse. And too many times it is that. It is, special projects and things of that nature taking the blue ribbon cutting away from the fact that, hey, you need a new firehouse and you needed it like 10 years ago and it needed to be placed, 5 miles away from the current firehouse because you're growing, you're expanding, your demographics and everything is changing around you, and you're not being honest about what you should be doing with that money that is coming from your taxpayers.
There's nothing sexy about that.
So I just think, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, some of that stuff, there's
Right.
nothing sexy about it, so it's like, I'm not going to be able to maybe win my next campaign on, I opened a firehouse, So that's the other thing we're battling is the
the fact that I had, right. I maybe had to increase taxes because I had to add, say 5 firefighters to a new firehouse, right? That you're right. I mean, that ends up, and again, that becomes the boulders inside of these, backpacks that these politicians carry around with them, and they're still carrying around. They don't get off the hook. They have to. That weight is on their shoulders. But too many times they don't do the difficult thing. They just turn into the easy thing, and it gets them the votes. And then they stay in office longer and longer and longer. And it's so hard, again, to not have some political conversation that comes into the fire service because we're touched by it all. We get affected by all of the decisions that are made at the top. Yeah, so obviously, there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of Hurricane Katrina still today, even 20 years later. And obviously, we have ongoing natural disasters happening. Anytime that any of these things happen, I think it's great for us to lean into that and, lessons learned. There's always going to be lessons learned. I think that's what really gets under my skin with what's happened out there in Los Angeles with the current administration, the leadership of that city that just seems to want to kind of brush that under the rug. And it's like, we're not going to let you off that easy. So I hope everybody, keeps pushing for lessons learned out of all of these natural disasters. But that's, again, just a little touch of that. It's been 20 years since Katrina. Jared, we want to just come back to you and the inspiration for what you had for writing the book, The Modern Fire Officer, which is this book right here. It's a very nice read. I've read it. I appreciate the fact that it's firefighter friendly. It's not long. It's got good font and easy to read. So I really like that. But beyond that, The Modern Fire Officer, Communicate, Motivate, and Lead by Jared Vermeulen. And just let us know, like, what is your inspiration for this book and why was it so important for you?
It kind of goes back to a lot of what we talked about already with the mentorship thing, with trying to figure out your way as a new leader. When you're a fledgling officer or sitting in that right seat for the first time, expected to answer any call, like we talked about. When you're there, whatever it is coming in, 911 call, you're the guy, and there's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of training that needs to be done, and I think that if you're put into that position, kind of thrown into it, which a lot of people are, unfortunately, around the nation, you're at a disadvantage. So I was hoping that all the lessons that I learned, I could try to give to those that may find themselves in that position, and they can answer the call, and not only answer the call, but respond with confidence, build a team that has confidence, and do a good job, out there, because it makes a difference when we do it well, and it's a palpable difference than when we do it wrong and when we don't do it well. And there's a lot of things that I noticed that aren't in a lot of the textbooks for officers, like dealing with fear, understanding motivations of the people that you work with, that it's okay, to fail. A lot of that stuff isn't really in there, and it's something that everyone will deal with. And I'm sure you guys dealt with it, and you sat in that right seat, and something scared you, and in the past, you're not allowed to say it, like that you were scared, but it's okay. I mean, you can't have risk analysis without fear. Otherwise, you won't understand the job that you're doing.
Yeah, and you're emphasizing, to be clear, you are emphasizing the officer's role in that firehouse, on that truck, and you talk about being fit to lead. That's a big part. The whole book is really about that, is being fit to lead. It's more of an examination of yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And as you write, you're talking about the quality of service, sacrifice, self-control, and humility. And earlier in the conversation of this episode, you talked about, you better like humble pie, because you're going to get plenty of it, right, as an officer.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really it starts with you, no one else. So a lot of bad officers like to point the finger, kind of like the one that you gave us the example of. That, not that person is a bad officer, maybe just that day, they had a big problem, but it starts with you. That service and sacrifice, self-control, those are things that you have to have in order to do the job. You can't do the job without those things. And then the humility part wraps it all together. So it's really a self-examination. It's an examination of the emotional intelligence that it's going to take, the communication that you're going to have to acquire, those skills. And when you can put those things together and start to really get good at it, how amazing the job really is, because it is the best job in the world. But we'd be remiss not to mention there can be a lot of cons if you do it the wrong way.
Sure.
So
where can we find the book at?
You can find it pretty much wherever books are sold online. It's in Audible format and audio. It's the easiest place usually for everyone is Amazon. They're such a juggernaut. But it's at Barnes & Noble. It's on a bunch of different distributors. So you can listen to it. You can read it in print. Or you can get it on like a Kindle device.
Nice.
So it's available to however you like to consume your media. I would say this, it would mean a lot to me if you read the book, you would leave a review. Their weight in gold.
Yeah.
For sure. But like you said, I did write it very deliberately for firefighters. It's meant to be a nice, short read to get through it, impart some knowledge, and get you on your way. Like I want it to where a firefighter would pick up that book and think, okay, I could read this. This is not going to kill me to get through this thing. And that's kind of been the feedback, which has been nice.
Well, here at Original Firefighter, we are recommending the modern fire officer, Communicate, Motivate, and Lead, Jared Vermeulen. And Jared, we know that we're going to have you back on the show. So anything that we didn't get to today, we're going to pick up on our next episode with you. So you're going to have an invitation pretty soon to come back on the show with us. We've had a great time, Phil. Thanks so much for everything you do here at Original Firefighter. Jared, thanks for being on our show. And we just want to make sure that everybody out there is taking care of themselves. And as always, be safe.
This has been the Original Firefighter Podcast. Thanks for watching and listening. Tune in each week on Wednesdays for a new episode. Like and follow us on all social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel today.